be here to say a few words. I'm actually delighted to be here to say a few words. I'll be even more delighted when at the end of the talk, and after you having interrogated and questioned me and challenged me and given me a hard time, you go home and say, oh, well, I think I picked 1 or 2 points. Just by way of background, I was born in Malaysia. I came to Australia in a boat at the age of 18, landed in Fremantle, went to University of New South Wales, and did engineering. I didn't have a very good time there. I paid my price. I wasn't the top student there. I struggled all the way. In fact, as you hear my story, it's all full of struggles. I come from a very humble family with very little financial backing, and so I had to make it up for myself. And I was with this Irish landlord, a wonderful man, and I had to pay my rent and so on and so forth. And we got together buying and selling second-hand cars, selling old television and all sorts of things. And on the weekend, from Friday to Sunday, I was driving taxis. And if you want to know about survival techniques, well, you learn that in taxi driving. Anyway, that paid my rent and paid a bit of my fees and so on and so forth. I completed my degree and went back home and worked for the World Bank and traveled around Southeast Asia. There I had a lot of success. I rose very quickly, and the boss one day called me up and he said, I want you to open up our office in Indonesia. And I said to him, I'll come back to him the next day. And I went back the next day and submitted my resignation. And he was shocked. Anyway, I had a different reason for it, because Malaysia was going through a lot of turmoil in politics and so on and so forth. And I said, well, it's time to get out. I had, at that stage, 2 children, and my wife was expecting the 3rd baby, who was about 8 months pregnant or whatever it is, so I decided to quit. He was unhappy, but anyway, I came to Perth, Western Australia, and the Australia that I left in '65, and the Australia of '71 had changed dramatically. It was an absolute recession. If you wanted to get a job as a civil engineer, it was no, no, no. I wrote to 42 companies, and the response was, no, I don't have a job. I tried very hard to get into business of some kind, and I remember writing to a number of business companies and saying, look, check me out, try me out for a couple of years, and if you like me, give me 3 or 5% of the company. And I never had a reply. Strangely enough, when I was doing well, 2 of those companies came back to see me to do some work, and I had to give them work. So that's what life is about. That's what life is about, chaps. But when you are faced with situations like that, you learn survival techniques. So here I was, a civil engineer, and I rang the professional unemployment service at that stage, which was the one that was placing engineers and professionals into various jobs. And after 3 calls, the chap said, look, stop bringing me, go to the dole, be on the dole, you've got a family, look after yourself. And that's the last time I rang him. I went up to the dole queue. I was the only one dressed in a suit and tie and looking very smart and thinking I was the top chap in the world. And ahead of me were about 50 chaps in the dole queue trying to collect their dole. Most of them in thongs, sleeveless shirts. I said, what's happened to my life? A few months ago I was up in the top of the world, and here I am in the dole queue. I walked out of the dole queue. I said, this is not me. I cried all the way, got into a taxi and went home, went up to a place where I was staying with no rent. and there life began. And I said to myself, well, you've got to do something better than this. And that's when you start to think that qualifications means nothing. And I was writing to my wife and saying, I'm in business. The business was earning no money. I was actually in real estate. I was forced to learn real estate. I enjoyed real estate, and probably that was a turning point in my life. And probably the fact that I did not get a job was probably the best thing that has happened in my life. And in addition to that, I met a Swedish migrant, and I said to him, what are you doing? He said, I'm unemployed too. I said, that's good. 1 + 1 = 5. We'll get together, and that's the day. That's a year when Australia went into metric, and there was a lot of confusion among tradesmen. you know, when they were using rulers from metric to imperial, all that confusion. So he said, look, we'll make a fortune. I'll bring this ruler, this is a ruler, and we will import this from Sweden and sell it, and we'll make a fortune. So that started life. I was also selling rulers. I was going from Bunnings to Bunnings, small Bunnings stores, hardware stores, and trying to sell it. I said, I'm not going to give up this game. I'm going to find a breakthrough somehow. So there you are. That's how life it was. And one day, by this time my wife had come, the third kid in her hand. So that baby was only about 35 days old. And she did not ask me what I was doing. She was quite happy to come and get settled in the country and so on and so forth. And after 2 weeks, she said to me, what are you really doing? You know, you seem to go to work at 8 and you come back at 5:30, everything is all right. But are you earning any money? And I said, no, I'm not. Oh, geez, what's happened? So I did say to her that I'm in business and I'll make it and I'll make it. But anyway, there was no money coming in. And this went on for a few months, and after about 4 months or so, I came up one day after work, and she was smiling, and she had a letter in her hand, and I said, and she said, read it. I read it. It was an offer from the Department of Public Works offering me a job as a civil engineer. I read it, and I put it back, and she said, what are you going to do? I said, let me think about it. She said, I thought you would just take it. You got 4 mouths to feed plus yourself. Anyway, to cut the story short, I took the job as a civil engineer. I was unhappy. I worked as a civil engineer for about 4 years with the Metropolitan Water Board. We don't work very hard there. The chap said I could do the work in about a third of the time, and so I had plenty of time to think about the future and so on and so forth. I resigned, and I went off into business as a developer, building duplexes with a fellow engineer also. And friends, this is the exciting part. Within 5 years, we had a fortune of $8 million, $1982. Multiply that by about 6 or 8 or 9 or 10 times, you know, and you can work it out. We were really the top. Everything I touched, everything we touched went gold. This is a country with unlimited opportunities. There is no reason why we cannot be the most prosperous nation in the world. There's no reason. You think of it. We've got fantastic climate. We've got a lot of human rights, which I value a lot. Human rights is very important for me. Peaceful country. What else you want? Unlimited opportunities. So go for it. Go for it. There's no excuse. With that story, I'll come back to the story of Springfield. 2,860 hectares, I'll call it that, 2,860 hectares, came into the market, friends, in 1991, 92. 23 kilometers outside Brisbane, comes to the market, the agent says, bang, I'm going to make big money out of this. I kept on following him. I had no money anyway. I kept following him. I just kept bringing him. How is it going? How is it going? 9 months he couldn't sell grain. He couldn't sell it. And I rang him up and I said to him, look, I might talk with you, but I had no money anyway. And I won't tell you, but I bought it with no money. Yeah, but you can question me later on, but I won't tell you about that because that might take a while. But we went and contracted that land. The land was owned by Australian Forest Holdings, very conservative company. They said, who is this fellow who's trying to buy this land? Has he got any money? Has he done any deals? You know, I won't tell you all that. I can tell you that after the talk. We contracted to buy the land. And I asked the agent, why isn't it selling? He didn't tell me very much about it. But I'll tell you why it didn't sell. Many companies, the Lendlease, the Stocklands, and all these chaps would have bought it with their petty cash. Did not want to buy it. If at all you could get approval, only 1/3 of the land could be developed. And it was in an area which today is called Ipswich, but those days, 1989, 1991, friends, no one wanted to go to Ipswich. I used to go to Ipswich, socially and economically very depressed, high crime rate, even the state prison was there within 10 minutes of the land. The mental rehabilitation centers were all there. I used to go to Ipswich CBD, mom pregnant with a baby in her hand and one in the pram, and walking with thongs. That's Ipswich of 1989, 1991. They said, we don't want to buy any land here. These blokes are actually smart, but I ended up getting a contract on it. And those days, you could buy a land, go and check your records. Buy a land and house in Ipswich for $23,000. And that was the Ipswich. And nobody wanted to buy it. Well, we bought it, and there came the challenge of what do you do with it. It's like this. Those of us who are not sculptors, we look at a large rock and we see a rock. Our friend, the sculptor, he comes up, looks at the rock, and he says, there's something in it. I'm going to bring it out. And he brings out that beautiful face. He knows how to bring it. He's a sculptor. We saw this forest. No one wanted to buy it. We knew the city was calling out to us. Bring me out, bring me out. That's what's happening. That's what you will have in life. In life, you will walk past opportunities. You won't see it unless you start to go into it. And you will see that beautiful face. So, we were a bit confident. We went up and we saw the council. The council at that stage, well, they were wonderful blokes, wonderful blokes. They were mainly simple folks who were not used to any big dazzling things. The maximum they have approved was about 200 lots. We turn up and we showed only part of the plan because we did not want to frighten them. We showed them part of the plan and said, we want to do this. We only showed 1,100 lots. They said, you must be joking. And anyway, we said, assuming you passed that, we could do this and all that, but not too much of the story, because that might have given them a bit of a heart attack. So they said, look, for all what you want to do, you have to go and see the Minister for Planning and his senior bureaucrat. If you can get through that, come and see me. They thought that was the end of us. No, that wasn't the end of us. And we went and saw, the only way we could see the minister, because we are talking at about 1992, 92, 93. Those of you who were here, we had been through a Fitzgerald inquiry. The government had come into power after a huge corruption scandal. Few ministers were locked up in jail. The new premier who came was squeaky clean. Was a solicitor, was squeaky clean, and he wasn't seeing anybody. The bureaucrats did not want to see anybody, and here is me trying to see the minister. Minister did not want to see me, so I got hold of a very highly respected surveyor who knew the minister very well. This surveyor has had done the centenary suburbs, so because of his experience and talent, the minister saw him and saw me. But he did not look at me, he was only looking at the surveyor. And finally, the surveyor convinced the minister to go and visit the site. He went on a four-wheel drive, he got lost. There was no roads to it. He used a lot of bad words. He came back and said a lot of bad words, and he said, who the dash 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 would ever live here? This is the Minister for Planning. You can, I might tell you his name later on. It's a friend of mine now. We've become friends. And so he said, who the hell would live here? Again, the surveyor said to him, Minister, have a look at this a bit more. So the minister summoned his senior bureaucrat, still around, nice chap, and the bureaucrat said, Minister, I'll come back and give you an answer in 3 weeks. He came back after 3 weeks and said, Minister, this is the exact words. Minister, this is an out-of-sequence development, sir. We cannot approve this. Many would have walked away. Forget about our poor councillors who were waiting to see me. Many would have walked away, but we kept on. And something keeps you going, you know. And I think you might have heard in government circles about public-private partnership. Fellas, always think of this. It is persistence, persistence, persistence. Just hang in there. The door will open. Okay? So the minister was had a problem. The senior bureaucrat says it can't be approved. Yes, here is his surveyor mate who had done a major development, the Centenary suburbs. So he said, look, what we will do is, we will approve this project. The bureaucrat said to him, if you approve this project, the state will have to pay a lot of money for infrastructure cost. The minister said, we'll approve this project, where there's no cost to the state. You build Centenary Highway from Ipswich motorway to Springfield. Those of you who know this part of the world, Ipswich Centenary Highway stopped at Ipswich Road then. Said, you extend that. You give all the land free for future roads, for future railway, for hospitals, for schools, fire brigade, ambulance, and pay us $1,000 a block every time you subdivide a block. All that amount to $210 million. He thought that was the end of us. We had to overcome that fight, chaps. We had to overcome that. These are facts. These are facts. So we had a huge challenge, and we said, in addition to that, he said there is no planning instrument to approve a CBD of this size. The only planning instrument that we have is Canberra. Now, in order to get this approved, in addition to all these, you have to have a validating legislation and an act of parliament. Now, just think of it. If you had that, what would you do? Think of it. Hang in there. Anything you want to do in life, just hang in there, fellas. Hang in there. You haven't got any money in your pocket anyway, but hang in there. But I'll tell you all about that later on. So what we did was, we went 6 times around the world. Don't ask me where we got the money. We went 6 times around the world. We started 15 master plan communities. 13 of them were in US. We said, let's see how these things work. And can I tell you by background, 3 out of 5 master plan communities in the States, they changed hands within 5 years. 7 changed hands within 10 years. So that's a huge fall in this game. This is not an immediate game. So I said to my surveyor, I said, my friend, what do we do with this land? The surveyor and planner were very, very experienced chaps. They said to me, look, I don't know, I feel very sorry for you. I don't know what we can do for you. But I said to him, look, fellas, go up and have a look at it and come back. They came back after 2 weeks, and they said to me, oh, wonderful, you could make a quick quid here. What is it? He said, chop it up into 40-acre parcels. There's a huge demand for rural residential lots, 23 Ks outside Brisbane. Make 18 million bucks and you're off. It'll sell like hotcakes. Well, it was very tempting, but we said no. I'm just cutting all the story short. So we started to pursue the building of a city, and in that we placed emphasis on 3 important things: education, health, and IT. We are talking about IT, 1991, 92, friends, you know there was no mobile phone. Those mobile phones you were carrying were that big. You had a strap and you carried that around. And it doesn't work very fast. That's 1991, 92. No emails. So we said, let's take this technology game on, and we planned this city with technology, health, and education. In the end of the day, we went back to our friends, the councillors, and we said to them, at least approve 1,100 blocks. And they approved that after a bit of problem. We then used that as a means of cash flow to get the job going. And we started the journey. And it was one of total persistence and hoping tomorrow the sun will come. I failed my exam, chaps, when I was at the university. And I come, as I said to you, from very poor parents. I was very sad. I wrote to my father, I said, Dad, I'm sorry I let you down. I failed. And he wrote me a letter. He said, son, don't worry. The darkest night brings the brightest dawn. So that keeps on my mind all the time. When everything is snow, you say to yourself, tomorrow the sun will come.
Being a council that's, attracts migrants, I think to have somebody of Maha's capability and quality, and certainly his story is an inspiration would be an inspiration to the migrants that are members of our council. So to have him here to tell the story of, his story of coming to Australia and making a success, I think it would really go well with what our migrant members, it's something that they would share and cherish.
Well, I want to ask you, the contribution that developers, when they develop blocks of land, they're saying, I think the figure is $80,000 that they have to contribute to government for every stand.
Council and government.
To council. Can't you sort of improve on that and get that down? Because everybody's criticizing that and saying, it should be about 40,000 and that bring the price of land down.
Yeah.
Do you have to make those same contributions, or are you developing your own infrastructure and it works out cheaper? So
no, we've got to pay that. It's a big issue. It's a big issue. The government knows that that's a big issue. They've got to try and find a way to overcome that. Because in Victoria, it's not as high as that.
Yeah, they're quoting off the figure,
yeah.
I think, in Victoria.
Mm-hmm. It's a big issue that the blind government has got a problem with that. And what's going to happen is it's an issue. A lot of UDIA are very concerned about it. A lot of developers are concerned about it. In the end of the day, it's got to go to the buyer. Somebody, if you are developing, you just have to pass to the buyer. You're not going to carry it.
At this stage, you're 13% complete, and I'm assuming you've got, of course, projections on how that's going to increase. What do you think would be a catalyst to, I suppose, change that to trend? Is it stamp duty changes? Is it changes to local?
No, I don't get that. It's 13% developed. 13%
developed at this stage, but you, of course, have projections for further development and how that will sell and so on. But what do you see would be a catalyst to increase your current projections? So would it be changes to stamp duty or changes to local government legislation or changes to the market that would see you completing the project quicker than currently expected?
The rail is going to make a big impact. It's really going to see a spike. Right? Facilities, like we opened a park about 4 months ago, $30 million park. That's seeing a spike. The schools, we got good schools, public, private schools like St. Peter's from Indoor-City, they have moved in. That's seeing a spike. So there are spikes that we are getting. We've got, on the 11th of October, Masters, which is the first Woolies hardware store opening in Queensland, opening there at a cost around about $30 million. That will see a spike. Then we got Mater Hospital who are coming in. That's going to see a spike. So there is a lot of forces. It's just having a multiplier effect now.
But those are all spikes created by your work, not I suppose it's sort of something that you haven't done that may change how rapidly Springfield is completed. Do you see something that you don't currently sort of have control over that would change the speed of completion of constructing Springfield?
Well, those issues like stamp duty and land tax and all that, they are big issues. We can't control that. That's the state government trying to decide. It's got a bit of money it needs, so it's not too bad. But we will be attacking it ourselves. We are constantly attacking it. We are helping organizations who have moved in there to get them to start moving. For example, the data center has had a spike. That immediately brought a lot of interest from businesses to come in there. So we can do what we can do, but what the government can do or cannot do is beyond our control.
What caused you to have the fire in your belly to keep going when you could have settled in the civil engineering job, or you could have settled later on in the story you said that you could have had the subdivision? What caused you to keep going?
I don't know. I think I'm a restless bugger. But I think in life you want to try and achieve something. The money doesn't make any difference. You can only have so much of it for yourself.
The railway is now in Richlands. How long before that will then extend through to Springfield? And I understand it's been supposed to go through Redbank Plains and continue through to Ipswich. Is that still the plan? Or?
Yeah, The railway was actually, the Premier Anabla agreed the railway was from Dara to Springfield.
Yeah.
There were a number of members of parliament who objected to that railway because they didn't have any money. So she managed to convince them to do it in 2 stages. First to Richlands, which is done, as you know.
Yeah.
And Richlands to Springfield will start in about 5 weeks. There's all the geological surveys going on. Everything is being done. They've been working on it for the last 4 months. So we are expecting work to start within about 4 to 6 weeks. I think the South African community is a great community. They've got tremendous amount of talent and tremendous amount of expertise. And those who have come here are really determined to succeed. And they have a wonderful opportunity to succeed in the growth of Springfield. And with a growing environment and with all the many things that are happening in Springfield, we would welcome them. We would enjoy having them there. And I think you will find that they will add a lot of value to the society. We've got a large South African community mainly in Brookwater, and they are very happy about it. And so we would like to see more of them coming up and living there and calling Springfield and Brookwater their home.